Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful planet of ours. The great Albert Einstein reminds us, quote, "Everything is energy, and that is all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics," end quote. And that's from the great Albert Einstein. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about energy today with our guests here in just a few minutes. But we like to always say, you are the inspired and the inspiration. So let's be inspired. Let's inspire others. And let's inspire before we expire. And welcome to Inspired Living, where every moment is an opportunity to ignite your passion and your curiosities and embrace the many mysteries, phenomenons, the unknown, the known, the ordinary, and yes, the extraordinary. I'm your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here with you yet again for another soul adventure, an inspiring episode to explore, discuss, and discover the many diamonds within each and every one of us and the many hidden gems that have yet to be revealed to us and the world. I'm thrilled to have you join us today as we embark on a journey of inspiration, motivation, and transformation. Whether you're tuning in from the comfort of your home, on the road, or wherever life takes you, this show is designed to uplift your spirit and empower your dreams. Inspired Living is all about fostering a supportive and empowering community. With each episode, we'll highlight incredible guests who have overcome challenges, pursued their passions, and make a positive impact on their respected fields and our amazing and beautiful world. The journey matters, and we want to celebrate your victories no matter how big or small. Together, we can cultivate a mindset of possibility and unlock the doors to our dreams. Inspired listeners can expect engaging discussions, thought-provoking questions, and actionable steps to manifest inspiration into your reality. Of course, we always want to give a big shout out and say thank you to all of our inspired listeners from around the globe, the universe, and beyond. The team and I are always so very humbled and grateful to you and listening, downloading, subscribing, leaving reviews, and voting to make Inspired Living a best inspirational show and a best spiritual show to follow and listen to as referenced by FeedSpot. So we really appreciate the recognition. And of course, we always say we really appreciate our inspired listeners all around the globe. If you're not yet subscribed, liked, or followed the show, there's always time to do so over on our main social media platforms at Facebook. Just look for the Inspired Living Radio and Podcast community, Instagram, Blue Sky, and X, formerly known as Twitter. And the name to follow is Inspired for Us. That's the number 4, Inspired for Us. And you can also follow us over on our YouTube channel, Inspired Living Radio, and we're now streaming through Audible or wherever you get your favorite podcast shows. So get ready to be inspired, uplifted, encouraged, and motivated, because the best is always yet to come. So let's go prospecting together, shall we? So our guest today is for the time, Miss Venus Castleberg, and a little bit about her journey and where she's coming from. I want to read a quote to open up the show. She says that I've always lived between two worlds. One part of me is deeply pragmatic, organized, grounded, with a head for business. I've run a construction company, an insurance agency, and founded Psychic University. But the other part of me is something less tangible, the part that can walk into a space and feel what's off, what's stuck, and what's ready to move. After decades of doing this work, I've seen time and time again that yes, the physical work matters, but so does the energy. And that's why I believe in both. Fix the roof and clear the field. What I love most is helping good homes find the people they're meant for and creating more harmony for families, communities, and the land itself. And so today we're going to be talking with Venus, and today's topic is the hidden dangers of mucked-up home energy with Reverend Venus Castleberg. And if you want to learn more about her, you can go to venuscastleberg.com. And just a little bit more about her is she is also the founder of Psychic University. She's a clearing specialist, intuitive guide, or ordained minister, and a spiritual awakening coach with over 25 years of experience working with the unseen. And I always remind you listeners, just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And after a life-changing awakening at the age of 30, where she began sensing energies most others couldn't see, Venus committed to understanding and working with those energies, both within people and the spaces they inhabit. She's explored and practiced more than 20 forms of healing and transformational work, including Reiki, shamanism, hypnotherapy, and energy clearing. What she says is today she brings that blend into the world of real estate, partnering with agents to clear the stuck, strange, or heavy energy that can prevent homes from selling or energy left behind. And through her vibrational flow system, she helps properties release old stories and attract the buyers they truly meant for. Venus creates a grounded, compassionate space for exploring what's really going on beneath the surface, because sometimes what's in the way isn't visible, but it's absolutely real. And again, if you want to learn more about her, you can visit our posts on our social media pages, or you can go to venuscastleberg.com. And with that, Miss Reverend Venus Castleberg, welcome to Inspired Living.
Thank you, Mark. That was a great introduction. Lots of stuff in there.
We have to cover a lot of details. So let's talk about, I want to first and foremost, because we've got a whole hour to discuss, but what was if you don't mind, what happened at the age of 30 that really kind of transformed your way of looking at the world, your belief systems, your learned systems, how you were raised? What changed at the age of 30 for you?
Good question. Yes, everything changed. Well, I spontaneously became a clairvoyant medium. So I suddenly could see the spirit realm. Pretty much happened overnight. It wasn't like I had it when I was a kid. I mean, I had an imaginary friend when I was a kid, but that was the only, possible spiritual realm back then. And then growing up, I was raised Catholic and, had all the life things happening. So I had kind of a normal childhood. And then at the age of 30, coming home from a Reiki master class, and that's when I was like, I see things that I didn't see before. So yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and I bring that up, Venus, because a lot of times many people, in fact, science has actually shown that we really don't start to reach our adulthood until we're in our early 30s. And sometimes reaching that adulthood also breaks free of form of what we thought we knew of the world or what we were raised to believe. And then we start exploring to discover that there's a lot much more to this than meets the eye. Like I said, just because we don't see it with the physical eye, just like energy, frequency, vibration, the wind, gravity, air, the list goes on, Wi-Fi, this signal that's connecting you and I, doesn't mean that it's not around us. And so you started to see energy in a different way. Did you also see the colors of energy, or was it more just a general energy around the person or around the house or the property that that you'd be listing or selling?
Yeah, well, becoming a clairvoyant medium, I started seeing spirits, and then I would drive down the road and I'd see like battles still going on, and I was like,
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive, dedicated community.
You're in the commercial fine. It's when I'm...
My name is...
Yeah, there's echo, bad echo.
Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which...
No, I didn't change anything.
Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen? Along with your own personal
It's your
soul
side,
adventure,
'cause I
Marc
can hear
Lainhart,
you.
the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for.
I can hear you.
Internationally
Can you hear
known
me?
as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher,
Yep,
medical
that's me.
instructor, radio show
I'm here.
host, inspirational
hear you.
writer,
Can
and
you-
hiking guide are
Okay.
here to help you on a journey of self-discovery,
Test,
healing,
test.
inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for
summer break because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Oh, okay, we're good.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay.
Echo. Can you hear now? Can you hear me now?
Echo. Okay, yes. But like heaviness, let's say like you bought a new house. I've heard of this too before. Like people buy a new house, they think it's all going to be, really nice and everything, and then they get in there and they start arguing, and they never used to argue. Like there's some energy in the house that isn't complete with the past owners, or hasn't moved on, or is unhappy that they're there. And it could just be a physical thing. I have a house in South Carolina that she's been repairing that house for literally 2 years. Every time she fixes something else breaks. And she just told me it's been built on a Native American burial ground. Like, yeah, there's probably some energy that's not cleared, right? Not okay. So you might feel tingling on the back of your neck. You're like, somebody in the room, or like it just something feels off. Or you'll have a closet or a room in the house where you're like, you don't want to go. You're like, I do not want to go in that room. I don't know why, but I just stay clear of that space.
Yeah, and you go by the Home Whisperer, right?
Yeah, I do.
So
yep.
you connect the homes and you go by the Home Whisperer. And so when you're going into a house, and it kind of reminds me, there's a lot of examples for, property or land holds memories. And sometimes when it's bad memories or terrible events have happened, like, Pearl Harbor or Gettysburg or 9/11, those places can harness that energy. And like you said, if they're not being cleared out, it's the same thing with houses. I'm thinking of you remember the old classic movie Poltergeist, where they came in and built over the graveyard. They removed the headstones, but they didn't remove the bodies. And all of a sudden, poltergeist starts happening, And so, I do believe that the land holds the memories. And so if you build a house on a horrible event or memory, and all of a sudden you're a healthy couple and you move into that home and you start fighting, what can you do, or what would you do as the Home Whisperer to help this family out?
Awesome. That's a great question. I love to just talk to people. I will have a free consultation with anybody, and we'll just talk about what's going on. So that's first and foremost, like what's going on with the home, what have you noticed? How long has it been going on? It's just kind of a, let's get to know each other and what's been happening. And I would say the first step in clearing a home is just talking to it. Is literally like, hey, how you doing? Everything is energy. So it's a house. It doesn't have a head and eyes and a mouth, and it doesn't have the speech, but it has it can communicate through energy. And our first language is energy. We were speaking with energy long before we started speaking with words. And now we can like speak to the things. You could do this with your car. You could do this with your animals, like speak to them through energy. And you can use dialogue, but I like to just like show me what's going on, because I'm visual, but some people are audible, right? So they might hear what's going on. Some people might feel some stuff is going on. And I just happen to have the vision piece. So I'm like, oh, I can see there's like this dark energy in the corner. Okay, what's that? And then you're just talking to it and then letting it like communicate back.
Well, as Tony Robbins reminds us, where focus goes, energy flows. And why do you think it is we forget that we're energetic spiritual beings first, having a human experience? The energy that's in our heart that makes our heart go is our connection to the material world. Why do you think we forget that we're energy beings first and kind of, put energy to the side, not as a real focus, but we know that energy is everywhere. Energy is everything. And it was, the light bulb that lit up the world, literally. So why do you think that is?
Well, I think that we came here to forget to remember. Because if you came in remembering everything, you would miss the journey of remembering who you are and remembering that we're from energy and remembering that we're having a human experience. But if you came in knowing all that, you might be like, oh, well, then what's kind of the point of being here?
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective. I just wanted to see what you thought. I'm with you on the same way. It's like, why do we forget? Sometimes I do forget, and I do this work all the time. In fact, before we started the show, I was doing a nice sound bath as a certified sound healer, and working with healing and the modalities of frequency and vibration, just setting the tone for today's show. And it's like, oh, I do forget sometimes that I'm an energy spiritual being first that's incarnated into physical form. And yeah, maybe I'm not supposed to remember that impacts my choices. So for the listeners out there, when you go into a home, how do you know what the home is telling you? Like, tell me, kind of walk me through. And I also want to go back when you said you see the spirits, because we can see the spirits two ways. For the listeners out there, we can see them subjectively, which is in our mind, which we call clairvoyance, or we can see them objectively, which is actually with the physical eye. Those are the two ways to actually see the spirit world. I'm just curious for you, Venus, how do you actually see the spirit world? Do you see it through the third eye clairvoyantly, or do you actually see them objectively walking around with the physical eye?
Yeah, well, I started seeing them objectively, and I shut that down pretty fast. I was like, no, that's a little too freaky for me. Like, I was in church once, and I was playing with trying to see things with my physical eyes, and I saw a little pink alien showed up, and I was just like, I don't know what to do with this information. So I just, pretty shortly after that, I was like, no. And then it took, I think it took another year or so. I don't know the timing exactly. And then that's when the clairvoyance popped open. They were like, we're not letting you get away from this altogether. But, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I can handle clairvoyance a little bit easier, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and I bring that up for the listening audience because, again, when you start to have these experiences, like you said, you're in your 30s, you started to have this awakening, the veil being lifted, and I always remind my listeners and my students that sometimes, be careful what you ask for when you do start to see. Just know that the intelligence of what is unseen will work with you, because they're not here to scare you. They're not here to frighten you. And, a lot of times Hollywood movies will be, influenced on people based on what they've seen in a movie. And I haven't found that to be true. So you actually asked the spirit world that you didn't want to see them with your physical eye objectively, and said, you know what, I prefer to see you in a better way through my third eye, which we call clairvoyance. Again, nothing new, very ancient technology or ancient philosophy of working with yourself to see what is seen and to see what is unseen. And so that's why I bring that up, because it can be very disturbing to see a physical, non-physical being with your physical eye, because even your brain tries to process and says, am I seeing what am I seeing? You almost the ego almost tries to debunk it. And I know that's how it worked for me. But I don't see them objectively. And so for the listeners out there, you may be born with this gift, You may have walked the planet your entire life, or like Venus and myself, you came to a situation some point along the journey that changed how you saw the world. Mine was through traumas and tragedies. Yours, like you said, Venus, was what you explained at the age of 30. And, I just want the listeners to be, reminded of that. And don't be scared of it. I haven't found the spirit world to be a scary place filled with, Hollywood movie genre. So quite the opposite. So you get to talk into the home, and you go into the space, and you start to become aware of what the home is trying to tell you. So that's why you call yourself the home whisperer. But how did you learn to do that? Did you actually? I know you said you have some tools and a course. Did you go to a teacher? Did you go to a mentor? How did you be able to grasp all of this of what was unfolding? Because it can scare people, and it can drive people away, or make them go insane as well.
Yeah. Well, like I said in the very, very beginning, I didn't really have a mentor. So I was just like spontaneously awoke. I didn't really have anybody to talk to. So I was like, I talked to my spiritual team, and I was like, what is this? What do I do with it? And so some of it was their information, the energy, it was just an intuitive knowing of like, okay, it just made sense to me. Like if I'm driving down a road and I see that it was militia and Indians still fighting. And I was just like, I just feel like you don't have to do that anymore. Like, I'm like, but I don't know how to clear you, but I'm just going to say, hey, can somebody, Archangel Michael, because that's the only one I knew at the time, was like, can you come help them move on, And, but I let one of the things, and this is something I do with the homes, everything that I do is I let the home communicate to me. And it might be an intuitive hit. It might be just I have a knowing. It might be I see something symbolic, like a crest or, a necklace or, so I'll ask if I'm working with people, usually I am in the homes, I'll be like, okay, the home is showing me like a necklace. Is there, does that make sense to you? Does that fit in your realm somewhere? And sometimes they say no. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe just hold on to that and maybe it'll come to you later. I don't know. I don't necessarily try to assess or attach a lot of meaning to things. I just say what I see. And then from there, when you're talking about what you see, sometimes the people you're working with are like, oh, that's weird you brought that up. I had a necklace that my grandmother gave me and I lost it. And it's like in this house somewhere. And I'm like, well, you're trying to sell this house, honey. We probably need to find the necklace before the house is going to go. Right. So it's just this unfolding and this willingness to like talk and listen. I think listening is so key. And then trusting your own wisdom. And then from there, I mean, yes, I've studied 20 different modalities. I've had many mentors and teachers over the years. So my system now is kind of a blend of a bunch of things that I've learned and things that I've discovered just by doing the work.
Yeah, and that's awesome because that's what makes you unique to the work and makes you unique on this planet, right? Taking all these different modalities and putting, just like a tool in a toolbox, just like a plumber, a carpenter, a welder, construction worker, they all have different tools, and the same would be the same for you, taking all these different modalities from, Reiki to shamanism, very ancient forms of connection, by the way. But what I liked what you said, Venus, was some very diamonds, or what I like to call gems during the show, is the words of silence, the words of listen. That word is an anagram. If you switch the letters around, two different meanings, two different words, listen versus silent. But moving into that silence and then also trusting what you're receiving without trying to edit or trying to, the ego always wants to be in control, and doing this work is trusting the process, having that information flow or download, like seeing a necklace connected to a grandma, but also trusting without editing and giving what you get without editing the message, because we're mediums, we're messengers, not editors. And sometimes that can be difficult for people. But a lot of times it's just, I always remind my students, if you sit still, the journey will begin. And if you really want to truly start connecting to what Venus and I have been doing for a while and love to do, is ask believe. You have to have a little bit of belief in this. Take a divine breath. The breath is what connects us from the material world to the spiritual world. Then you'll start to receive information. Again, you're focusing on the flow of that energy. You'll start to receive information, whether it's an idea, something in your gut, a visual reference, a synchronicity or coincidence, and then you're going to perceive that information based on what you're receiving. So ask, believe, deep breath, receive, perceive. That's how you can really start to understand the language of what is unseen that connects all of us. Like Ram Dass always reminded us, we're just walking each other home at the end of the day. So even though we're in different parts of the planet right now for the show, we're all heading for the same direction. So when you're connecting to the home and you get that visual reference like a necklace, how do you, let's say I'm a non-believer and you're telling me that my grandma's necklace is somewhere in this house because grandma just stopped by to say you need to take this with you. How do they react to that? How do they respond as, as your clients? Are they taken back? Are they like curious about it? Are they, kind of walk me through that.
Cool. Well, I always ask people for permission too. Like, I'm like, okay. All right, so I'm a little bit off. I'm a little bit different, right? And my approach is a little different. And I'm like, are you open to like what I'm going to get? Like, and they get to say yes or no. Like I've had a client that was like, no, he had somebody visit and he's like, I don't believe in that. I don't want you to tell me about that. And I was like, oh, I honored that and I totally dropped it. So I'm just like, okay, if they're not open to it, then I'm like, there's just some energy that's stuck here. Let's see if I can help it get cleared. But most of the time it's like, hey, it seems like somebody's here to get complete with you or something. Can I, are you open to that? And they get to say yes or no.
Yeah. And that's another diamond right there, is always seek permission, always ask to work with that client, that student, even with the work I do, I'm always asking for permission. I never go up and do, just cold, blind connection with people, because it can really impact people because you don't know exactly where they're at. So it's another valid point, is to seek permission to do this, because again, it may throw some people off. So when you are connecting, how long ago did you actually start working with the real estate? Because it's funny, I just did a reading yesterday with a real estate agent. We actually talked about the upcoming show today, and she actually has a person that she works with that does do like a Reiki clearing and kind of comes in and blesses the homes and moves the energy, which I found interesting. Do you do real estate as well, or is this more your focus of clearing the house and working with real estate agents?
Yes, I do space blessing, house blessing too. I think that's actually where I know that's where it started, is like I had people saying, hey, I got a new home. Would you come in and just bless it? I had become a reverend a long time ago. I didn't really tell people about it, but some people knew, and they're like, well, I feel like you could, make my home better. And so I would just go in and clear anything that I saw, but mostly it was just like, how do we raise the frequency of this space for this person, and yeah, I mean, there's people that have lived in places for a while, and then something goes sideways, and they're like, something seems off. I'm not sure what happened, but something changed, So then again, we're doing a little bit of detective work, trying to figure out, well, when did this happen, and what changed for you, So sometimes we have to dive into the owners as well. Like, it's like, can we talk a little bit about what happened for you 6 months ago? And, I got fired from my job. It's like, okay, and we don't realize that the stuff that's happening for us in our bodies and in our lives affects everything around us, our relationships, right. When you're grumpy, the person, your loved one can get grumpy because you're like feeding off of each other's grumpiness. Well, it's the same thing in the house. If the house is like, suddenly you lose your job and you're worried about how you're going to pay your mortgage, the house feels that. And the house is like, whoa, what does that mean? Am I going to be like let go? Or, so it's just, again, even opening up people to talking to their own homes and their own space, and just being like, hey, it's okay. I'm going to find a way to like pay mortgage. It's not going to be a problem. We're not going to lose you. Right. But you have to reassure the home, because the home is picking up on your energy and your worry.
Right. And that space again can hold that energy if not properly cleared. And I'm just thinking back to the movie Poltergeist or even Amityville Horror. I'm sure that those movies, Hollywood gave rise to some of the culture of the business as well, right? People want their houses blessed. They want the energy of the old people that were there moving on. So I was just thinking about the famous movies like Amityville Horror, Poltergeist, all based on the home structure, the hauntings, if you will. So with moving energy, how do you, for the listeners, how do you go about moving, or how do you move something you can't see? I'm just going to kind of play a person that doesn't know anything about this field. How would you go about moving energy, and kind of just walk us through what that looks like visually or sounds like, or how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things that you can do, and I even give people a 50 ways to clear your space, clear your home. But you can use, you mentioned sound bowls, you could use tuning forks, some people smudge, you could use smudging, which is sage. There's lots of different ways to clear the energy. I personally like to talk to the energy. I guess I'm a talker, so I'm just like, okay, what do you need? What do you require? Is there something incomplete here? And just, again, having this dialogue and this communication so that a lot of times, and I love how you pointed it out or emphasized it, was just allowing us to just listen. You're going to know exactly what the house wants. The house will even tell you, hey, I'd love for you to just burn some candles and open all the windows and just do whatever the house is asking for, the space is asking for. You don't have to have a formula. I do have a system, and I have a system that I can teach other people how to do. But at the same time, like I said in the beginning, I was just okay, what can I do here? Ask a question. What can I do to contribute to the space? What would feel good? Maybe you ask yourself, because you're not you may not hear the house or have the intuitive hit, but you might just suddenly think about burning some sage, and you're oh, that seems kind of random, but okay, maybe just do it, and then just see how you feel before you did the sage and after you did the sage, and pay attention to that too, because when you feel lighter, when you feel more space, you're oh, something changed. I may not cognitively understand what changed, but something changed because I feel lighter.
Yeah, and I always equate it to, we clean the physical body, but we forget about the energetic spiritual body, cleansing our auric field, just like we cleanse our body with a shower. I always remind myself that I am a duality person, again, a spiritual, energetic being that's having this human experience in physical flesh. So, just even cleaning your own auric field out, moving, maybe you need to smudge yourself, right? Or you said 50 ways to clear your house, and as soon as you said that, I heard Paul Simon's 50 ways to leave your lover, right? You could play that song while you're clearing the house. 50 different modalities that you can do to move energy over or clear that energy out. And again, listeners, this isn't new. This is very ancient cultural community connections of working with what is unseen, whether it's energy, whether it's frequency, whether it's vibration, whether it's, and being able to be open to that, but also not to marinate in energy that might be tragic, or, as Venus, as you said, mucked up, right? And you talked about, for today's show, the dangers, the hidden dangers. So for the listeners, let's talk about what are some of these hidden dangers of not moving mucked up energy out of your space or away from your even your own auric field.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, I'm having a really bad relationship in the house before you, and they argued all the time, and the divorce was horrible, and the whole thing that went on between them is all this energy that's in the house, and now you're living in the house, and you never used to argue with your spouse, and now all of a sudden you guys are arguing. And then that becomes a potential of you guys splitting up, because there's somebody else's energy in the house that you're aware of. We're psychic SpongeBobs, right? We're 98% of our thoughts, feelings, and emotions aren't even ours. We're just aware of everybody else and all the energy around us. So now we're oh, I think that maybe we need to get divorced. And it's hang on, that's not even yours. That might have even gone a couple of relationships back in the house, right? The house might have memories of multiples, and then, so it's like, so that could be one. I do like to preface, and I think it's really important, and you even mentioned it, like, you're not in danger. Like no one and nothing can harm you unless you believe it can harm you. So, like, there's no danger here. Like, it's just, but it's like, just like you said, it's like, how long do you want to go without a shower? Like, you know, I wouldn't want to go much longer than a day. But unless I'm camping, and then I'm like, okay, I'm fine until I get back home. But at the same time, it's like, how long do you want to live in a place that doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't make you happier. It doesn't make you, like, maybe there's depression in the house, and you don't want to get out of bed, and then, you know, then you can lose your job. And, like, there's just a lot of ripple effects that can happen when you don't clear an energy that isn't uplifting and light and fun and joyful.
Yeah, and it's I think the analogy of taking a shower. You know, just think about when you haven't taken a shower for several days, how you feel in the physical body. So now imagine your spiritual awareness, and you haven't done that for your auric field or your nervous systems, your adrenals. You haven't cleared, or you haven't done something intentionally, connect to nature. You know, breath meditations, a spa day, sitting in a sauna. You know, there's a lot of modalities out there to clear the energy of our auric field. When people realize that they have that duality, right? Some people don't even realize they have that duality of a spiritual higher self. They're just stuck in the physical body, so they don't even think about that. So they can carry years and years of, you know, trauma and just that heaviness of energy, and then, you know, find a home and bring that energy into the home. And where do we spend half of our life? In bed. So, you know, it comes back to trust the process as well. When you feel those, you know, butterflies in your belly kicking around, you know, that energy, feeling and trusting that energy, because you may have the best house possible, but the feeling is just downright icky, gross. Like, so do you trust the process? I got a bad feeling about this, even though the house looks great. Do you find that people trust their gut on this and get their butterflies flying in formation, if you will, to, you know, say, hey, it's a great house, but I'm not going to purchase it because I don't feel right with it? Or do you find that people deny that hit and just get the house because of what it is, and then just live miserably in the house?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it depends on the person. There's definitely people that are like, oh, it's nothing, you know, I don't really believe in that stuff. You know, I've had somebody say, I don't really believe in energy. I was like, oh, okay, cool. You know, I can't convince somebody of energy if they aren't,
right.
Like, so, but, you know, and then but I have, you know, seen people get the callback, you know, I'm getting the callbacks of like, okay, maybe there was something to what you said. Can you come clear it now? You know, it's like, so, but a lot of people will back out of sales when a house is not, you know, it's actually a great, am I going to give away a real estate secret? Sure, why not? So it's a great, it's actually a great buying thing. Like, if you want to buy a house and you perceive that there are entities there, don't clear the entities before you buy the house. Buy the house, because the people who are creeped out by that stuff won't buy it. And then if you're okay, just get the house and then you clear the entities after.
Got it. And the reason I'm saying that is, you know, 3 degrees of separation is we actually are friends with the grandmother. It was her grandson that was killed in Idaho, the killer that killed those 4 college students in the University of Idaho. And the house that they were living in, they actually tore down the house because the homeowner said that there, you know, after the 4 killings in that home, there was no way that he made a conscious choice to say that I'm just going to completely tear the house down and not try to bring other people to rent the space out, other college students at the University of Idaho in Moscow. Instead, he actually tore the entire thing down, and it now sits as an empty lot because of the trauma and the tragedy that was actually enacted upon that space and that land. So I was just thinking about that. It's kind of 3 degrees of separation of a real life event that has taken place tragically, that the homeowner's like, nope, we're not building back on this land, and he'll probably just sell the land off raw. But if the land doesn't get cleared from that, will the land hold that energy for the next building that's built upon it? As the whisper, what would the whisper tell me?
Yeah. Again, sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes the spirits would still hang around. Sometimes the spirits are like, "Oh, the house is gone. I'll move on." So it's, but yeah, I again, what I would probably still ask some questions of like, what's the history even before that? Like, what was going on the land here? And, open my sight to see that and see what I could see and hear what I could hear about what was on the land even long before the tragedy, right? So, because sometimes, again, that's the connection. It's like there was already violence on that land before, and then the violence happened again because there was a memory there. So, it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, and that's an interesting perspective. I didn't think about that way. Just looking at the event as a horrible, tragic murder of these 4 innocent, college students. But I didn't even think about what was the land before the university. Going, if we go back hundreds of years, was there some sort of indigenous, tribal burial ground there before? Was there a great war there where a lot of people lost their lives? I didn't even think about that. And it kind of reminds me of the Stanley Hotel in. Is it Colorado that Stephen King wrote The Shining about, because it sits on limestone, and they know the hotel itself sits on a bed of limestone, and they know from science that limestone can hold energy, can actually hold memory, and that's why it's one of the most haunted, hotels in the United States. And so as you were saying, I was like, gosh, I wonder if anybody actually did any research into the land to see if there was anything that would tie today's tragic events to history past. That would be an interesting study and an interesting investigation, historical investigation, to see if it came up with anything, don't you think?
Yeah, totally. I always think that stuff's fascinating. Like, what was going on here before? Yeah.
Yeah. Literally prospecting, digging into, okay, what does the land hold? Because land does hold memory. I may actually do some research myself, or maybe have some of my students in my weekly groups say, hey, let's do some research on this area and see what we can find. Fascinating. So for you, shifting now from the negative of a space or a house holding energy, how have you seen in doing this? What kind of shifts have you seen after clearing, using all your different tools and your experience? How do you find the shifts take place after clearing home's energy and moving more from the negative dark into the positive light aspect of the work you do?
Oh, cool. Yeah. So you clear the energy. That's part of what I do. And then afterwards, you kind of set up the energy so that there's a constant clean energy. Like, I literally will put like a spiral of light vacuum cleaner in the center of a space and just have it be ongoing. So anything that comes in, I surround spaces with opalescent white light. Just make sure that the aura is clean, the space is clean. And usually owners or real estate agents, it just feels different. It feels lighter. It feels better. And I'm helping real estate agents move homes that they're having trouble moving. They're having trouble selling. So when I help those people, they're like, oh, a bunch of people were looking at it. They all walked out, and after you did the clearing, the next person that came in was like, this is my dream home, and it's like, that stuff's really fun for me, because it's like I get to see the outcome of my work.
Right. Do you feel, Venus, that every home is communicating, or have we forgotten to listen?
Oh yeah, I think everything is communicating.
Yeah.
Your
and it goes back to everything's energy, right? Yeah.
Everything is energy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a great thing too. It's a great trick for anybody in your house. Like, go around your house and like ask each thing if it's still contributing to your life. If it's not contributing to your life, move it on. Be like, okay, well, it wants to be owned by somebody else. Yeah.
Stuff that collects dust, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good exercise. And I always remind listeners too, nature, we always forget about nature. We've isolated ourselves in homes and, independent living, but we forget that our first connection is, our first home is nature. And so I always remind folks, to clean out spaces. There's a lot of different plants. If you can't get outside into nature, bring nature into your space. I'm here in my studio and I'm surrounded by all sorts of different plants because nature is, again, the greatest connector, greatest engineer, greatest teacher, healer. The list goes on and on. So, make nature a big part of clearing your own energy, but also the energy in the spaces that you inhabit. I'm teaching the next generation that their religion should be actually nature. There shouldn't be an actual religion structure. It should actually be connection to nature because it just has so much to offer us. So with the time we have left, I'm just curious, and do you have a favorite place? Because there are spaces in places around the world that also have a positive effect. Are there places that you love to visit and just stand in and marinate? And are there places around the world that you just refuse to go to?
Well, I don't refuse to go anywhere, but because I'm always up for a challenge. But I still remember the first time I stepped into Stonehenge. Like it was palpable energy. Like I was just like, and I was new. It was like I had newly become a clairvoyant medium, and like I stood in Stonehenge, even thinking about it, and every hair stood on end, and I was like, just starting to get aware of energy at that point and being like, whoa, that's like, it was, I think that was like my palpable first time and being like, oh, that's something. Yeah.
Just, was it more of a connection? Was it positive? Was it negative? Was it just not anything?
Yeah.
You just knew it was a special place, or?
Well, for me, it was positive. It just felt like really light energy, but it felt like a connection to something otherworldly. Like it was just like I stepped into like, I don't know, I would imagine that might be how I would feel if I stepped into a spaceship.
or vortex or portal. For me, it was Pearl Harbor. It was standing above the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor. To this day, just I can feel the energy of that tragic event. And then I was in a church in Cefalù, which is in Sicily, and we just, I'm with you. I'm open to prospect and explore anything. I'm not scared of anything. But I walked into this church, and it's a famous church because it has a very tall mosaic tile of Jesus, and it was from the 1100s. The church is literally from the 1100s, and I walked in, and I don't know what the space was, but I had to walk out and just get some fresh air. I just felt completely dizzy, So, for the listeners out there, remember, the more you start to open up to this, the price of sensitivity is sensitivity itself, because you are the equipment, you are the frequency, you are the radio that can tune into these. So if you're in a space that feels good, enjoy it. If you're in a space that doesn't feel good or you're uncertain, move away from that space, because it is your blending of your work field and what is unseen with the energy of that space. So just for the time we have left, Venus, how does your vibrational flow system work with home, land, and or business? Because you call it the vibrational flow system. Is that the vacuum in the center that you were just talking about?
Yeah. So I created a system that I can use on anything. My focus right now is homes, but I've worked on businesses. As a matter of fact, I just did one on Sunday, and the business was just like, oh, there's this, really stuck energy around money, and we were able to open that up, and things have already started to flow for his company. So, and the vibrational flow system is just a 7-step process that I go through with any property or any business. And it starts with, talking, and I go through a bunch of steps just to make sure that we're clear. And then also, like you said, make sure at the end there's this clean, vibrant space, and you probably bring in some guardians that are on your side and on the space's side, just to help keep the space clear, right? So you can clear the space, but then if you don't have, opalescent white light or something at the end, then the dark stuff, you can bring dark stuff in from when you go out. So, yeah.
All right. Well, Venus, thank you so much for coming on Inspired Living and sharing your VFS system with us, the vibrational flow system, and all the work that you're doing to be the home whisperer and help people get into homes and clear out old so you can make room for new. Again, if you want to learn more about Venus, work with her, have her, come into your home and do some of her work. You can visit her at venuscastleberg.com. And with that, Venus, who or what inspires you before we close the show?
Who or what inspired me? Well, I've been inspired a lot of different ways, a lot of different times in my life. I had one of my first teachers. She was Reverend Laverne. She's actually passed on at this point, but she was a psychic and a medium, and she was a hospice nurse. And for me, she showed me like kindness, just really being kind, and how much that moves mountains.
I love it. We stand on the shoulders of our mentors and our ancestors. So thank you, Venus, for coming on Inspired Living. We really appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the great work. And until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate. And most importantly, wherever you're at in this world, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover the diamond within. We'll see you next time here on Inspired Living. Take care, everybody.